Audio test. One, two, three. Audio test for the meeting stream.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in a few minutes. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our October 2nd meeting of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. I'll ask the coordinator to do the roll call.
Councillor Kitts.
Here.
Councillor Luloff.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Skalski.
Here.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Present.
And Chair Brown.
I believe I'm here.
You have quorum, Mr.
Thank you
Chair.
very much. We have a short agenda today, but I'm going to go through a consent agenda just so we can approve some of the items that don't have any delegations or presentations, and that way we can free staff up. So we're going to hold item 4.1, the engineer's report for McKinnon's Creek Municipal Drain. Item 5.1, the on-site sign procedures development application update. Is that item carried, or would someone like that to be held? Carried? Perfect, thank you. We're going to hold item 6.1, which is the independent electrical service operator long-term 2 procurement. Office of the city clerk is the next item at 7.1, status update. Is that item received? Perfect, thank you. And then the last item is item 9.1, which was included for information only. It was the Roma 2025 conference delegate report from Vice Chair Kelly, who has indicated he does not want to speak on it. So thank you, Vice Chair. We'll go back to item 4.1, Infrastructure Water Services Department. Oh. I was so excited just to get going here. I forgot a few parts. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, confirmation of minutes. ARAC minutes 27 from Thursday, September 4th. Are the minutes of the ARAC meeting from Thursday, September 4th confirmed? Perfect, thank you very much. Item 4.1 is the Infrastructure and Water Services and McKinnon's Creek Engineers Report. We do have a presentation, so I'll ask our team to come down and provide that. We don't have any registered speakers, but we did receive correspondence from 2 individuals, so I'll note that for the record. Dave, Lauren.
Mr. Chair, yes. So Lauren Franklin from Robinson's Consultants is here. They're the council appointed drainage engineer on the file. So Lauren's got a brief presentation.
Thank you. And I also do have Andy Robinson here available virtually to answer any questions or concerns if there are any. So this is the presentation for the McKinnon's Creek Municipal Drain meeting to consider. Next slide. As a project overview, there's a petition for outlet and improvement to existing drainage. The drainage area is approximately 2,000 hectares, a total length of 10.7 kilometers. The watershed includes 231 individual properties, 12 block assessments, and 15 roads. The construction is to take place on 24 individual properties, excluding the blocks, which also have some construction. Next slide. Highlighted in green, the potentially impacted properties where construction will actually be happening. Next slide. All costs associated with this report, the initial design, allowances, other costs, and construction for improvements is in support of proposed development and will be assessed to the properties in blocks F1, F2, and F3. Those are development properties. Therefore, there are no assessments to the remainder of the properties within the watershed for costs associated with this report, the initial design, allowances, or other costs and construction. Allowances will be paid to individual property owners in the amount shown on the schedule of allowance in Appendix E. So normally there is an assessment and that's balanced out by the allowances. In this case, because there's no assessments, the allowances will be a direct payment to property owners. Allowances for land impacted by the constructions are based on the land value in the appraisal report. Allowances for crop loss, for access and spreading of excavated material are based on published AgriCorp market prices and the yield published by OMAFRA. All properties within the watershed are assessed for future maintenance of the drain. Next slide. So F1, F2, and F3 are F1 and F2 are on the left side of the page highlighted in yellow, and F3 is the right side of the page for F1 and F2. F3 is the furthest one left, highlighted in blue. Next slide. General location plan, the watershed boundary highlighted in red, the potential drain and improvements highlighted in blue. Next slide. We were appointed in 2016 for this project. It's taken a little bit of time to get everything through, but we're here now. The on-site meeting for the affected parties was held on February 2017 for the purpose of the Section 4 appointment as required under the Drainage Act. Next slide. The purpose of the work is to provide a design and improve existing water course and update the existing Richard Clark municipal drain to accommodate the change in land use from rural agricultural to urban development and provide legal and sufficient outlet for those developments and the remainder of properties in the drain. The Richard Clark municipal drain was originally constructed by an engineer's report by Stidwell in 1966, so that is being updated to accommodate this as well and included in this drain. Next slide. But the modifications include improved capacity, establishing a drainage area, confirming the land use, protecting environmentally sensitive areas, inclusion of the Richard Clark, and distributing engineering and construction costs to the properties being developed. Next slide. Design considerations included a geomorphological analysis for erosion control, a geotechnical analysis for slope stability, environmental impacts by the Department of Fisheries, Ocean, and South Nation Conservation. Next slide. A little bit of details on the design considerations. I'll just skip over that, but they are there for consideration. Geotechnical analysis, the slope stability, there are a number of existing slope stability issues on the existing water courses without any changes to development. So one of the primary considerations was addressing those items. So that is a net benefit to the overall watershed. There are things being addressed that are already existing conditions and will provide improvements for many landowners. Next slide. Department of Environmental impacts included the Departments of Fisheries, Oceans, South Nation Conservation, and Species at Risk by MECP, MNRF. Next slide. DFO did require some mitigation compensation measures. They were designed by Arcadis and incorporated here and approved by DFO. And this is just a general detail of one of the areas to give an idea of what's going on. So some offline pond construction, fish habitat features, all incorporated within the drain. And that was to facilitate improvement. Next slide. For environmental impacts, the South Nation Conservation did require a detailed construction methodology to be submitted, erosion control plan to be submitted by a contractor when chosen, and monthly monitoring. These are all in support of protecting environmental features and protecting landowners, and part of the permit conditions for the South Nation Conservation Authority. Next slide. Injuring liability. So this happens when the drain does not have a sufficient outlet. Currently, Bear River serves as the outlet. Injuring liability was paid to landowners on the Bear River in the past. A number of the projects in this area have contributed towards a fund for the support of Bear River maintenance, as well as there will be a payment to the previously impacted owners as identified in the Bear River schedule in support of this project going ahead. While we expect there will be minimal impacts, they were last paid an injuring liability compensation a number of years ago. So to allow for the minimal impacts, some funds have been created and will be distributed to those owners. Next slide. Just more details on the injuring liability and how it was calculated. Special benefits assessment. So the special benefit is all costs for this project are being paid for by blocks F1 and F2. There's no assessment to the remainder of the properties within the watershed. Next slide. Future maintenance will be assessed to all individual owners. So while it's being paid for by the developers to begin with, after that, it becomes the responsibility of the individual property owners. People can report any issues through their drainage superintendent and get those looked at under the Drainage Act. Next slide. General idea of the cost estimate. This is a $22 million project that is being paid for entirely by the developers. You can see the special benefit assessment there of the 22 million, the net total assessed to the properties of $0. The total construction itself is about $16.7 million. There's a contingency of $2.5 million. All the details are there. Next slide. Again, the blocks for special benefit are F1, F2, and F3 as shown on this slide. Next slide. Allowances are paid to the affected lands in conformance with section 29 of the Ontario Drainage Act based on the following factors. So an allowance for land, construction or improvement of the drainage works for land lost due to the widening or relocation, and allowance for crop loss. Next slide. The allowances, the unit rate for was provided by Jetu Johnson Comba Inc., an appraisal report for benchmark values based on the land. In past, we've used MPAC values, but they've found to be quite out of date most recently and difficult. So we did have a much more detailed study go into determining the value for lands in this area because it is highly variable. And the value for crops is calculated using an average of corn, soybeans, and based on the latest Agricorp market prices for the area, and average area yield is published by OMAFA. Next slide. Allowances are paid to the properties that are impacted by the drain construction. So again, they're the ones highlighted in green. Next slide. Following this, a quarter revision will be scheduled. Any owner of land assessed for the drainage work may appeal to the quarter revision on the following grounds. So any land has been assessed too high or too low. Any land or road that should have been assessed has not been assessed, and due consideration has not been given to the use of the land. So while there are no assessments, there will still be a quarter revision. People can appeal based on their proportion of future maintenance assessments. Next slide. Where any landowner is making an appeal to the quarter revision, written notification along with supporting documentation must be received by the municipality 10 days in advance of the sitting of the quarter revision. Appeals should be based on individual future maintenance assessment, as all current costs are being paid for by the developer. Allowances cannot be appealed to the quarter revision. So there is an amount, they are set. They're not within the jurisdiction of the quarter revision. They can only be appealed to the tribunal. Next slide. That's the end of my presentation for today. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Are there questions to Lauren or Mr. Ryan from the team? Yeah, Councillor
Sorry,
Skalski,
just
go
a
ahead.
couple of curiosity questions, I guess. So this is a natural water course today and it's being expanded significantly. Is that a correct interpretation of this line right now?
The top half is a natural water course. The bottom half is an existing municipal drain. Both are being incorporated into one drain.
Thank you. And has there been a public consultation on this change?
The public consultation required under the Drainage Act was the on-site meeting. So that was the one that was in February of 2017. So it has been a while, but
Okay.
and this is also a public consultation, as well as there's appeal processes that are available for the future.
Can you just give me a flavor of what residents may have said at the time?
At the time, they were concerned about flooding on Bear Brook, which has been somewhat addressed by the compensation, as well as there has been a process commenced for Bear Brook that will help to deal with issues on that drain. There were concerns for costs, which have been addressed by assessing all the costs to the developers for this property or for this particular drain, which isn't necessarily the way that it's always done under the Drainage Act. There can be assessments to individual properties, but we didn't feel it was appropriate in this case. Impacts to lands and allowances, all those things were addressed in the report.
Thank you. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Liloff.
Do you have an estimate as to the total amount of private property loss due to this project?
Not offhand, they are in the schedule of allowances, so they're set out how much. Typically, it's usually only 2 to 3 meters, and well, we call it an impact to lands. Most of those lands that are being addressed are already have slope stability issues, so they're falling in, and what we're taking is actually for the protection of those lands. So it's actually a net benefit, even though they are still getting an allowance for the land that is used in that. It's a very minimal swath of land alongside of the drain. Towards the upper end, there are much wider areas, but they're primarily in the development properties already.
Are all of the lands being taken currently agricultural lands, or are there some private residences as well?
There are private residences, smaller properties, primarily agricultural lands.
You mentioned the form of compensation that's going to be calculated for those that are losing agricultural lands. What does that look like for these private residences that don't have agriculture on them?
So the report that was done by the appraiser looked at each type of land use, and it was applied accordingly. So if they were private residences, the land valuation for those types of properties are quite a bit higher, and that was addressed in the appraiser's report.
So they did not use MPAC assessments. They looked at like current sale or current value of properties that are like?
Correct.
Okay. And can you tell me what the total amount of compensation is going to be paid? And just remind me, is that 100% paid for by the developer, or is the municipality on the hook for some of this?
Are we able to flip back to the slides?
If you've got them in front of you,
I don't have the number directly in front of me on the slide, but the full cost estimate, the allowances were there. They are set out in that on that table.
Okay.
And they are all paid for by the developer at this time. So.
Okay. Given that this is a massive widening of this drainage system into Bear Brook, can Bear Brook handle the volume and the speed at which this new stormwater is going to be moving?
So there is some impact to Bear River. It was anticipated to be minimal. Overall, we looked at a value of an increase in 10%. All development properties that are along this drain are required to control their flows pre to post. So the impacts themselves are minimal, but there would still be some impact. That's part of the compensation and the injuring liability. That injuring liability did two things, both pays for injuring liability and set funds aside for the maintenance of Bear River, which when completed will reduce the overall impact to Bear River. Again, mitigating that to the point where we feel it's minimal.
How many private properties could be affected on Bear River?
There were approximately 30 private properties there identified in the presentation.
What is the risk of not doing this?
This is required as the outlet for development. So there are a bunch of already approved development properties that require this as the outlet. If you do not do that, they do not have sufficient outlet, and those properties can't be developed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Through you, Chair, just to clarify, we don't own municipal drains. They're on private property. They're a benefit to the private properties. Right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryan. And Councillor Luloff, just to answer your question, the allowances being paid is listed in the presentation or just shy of 1.3 million.
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate it. Perhaps we shouldn't call it a municipal drain if it's not run by the municipality. Seems quite confusing. Thanks.
Good point. Thank you, Councillor Kitts.
Thank you, very much, Mr. Chair. You had summarized some feedback back in 2017. I know there's no residents here today to delegate, but you have been in touch with a few. Could you summarize maybe some of the questions you've had in the last couple of weeks?
There's been only limited response so far, but the questions that did come in concerned allowances, the loss of trees, more specific property questions, wanting to know, how will this directly impact my property? What are the impacts? The landowner that did submit questions for correspondence has concerns about wells and some other things that can't be directly addressed through the Drainage Act process. But if there are additional city processes, that may be helpful to respond to that owner. And that would be basically it in summary.
Okay, thank you. My colleague mentioned, through this line of questioning, touched on the fact that the assessments are not using MPAC. That's a bit unique in the past. So that I would say that's kind of a bit of a lessons learned. Is there anything else in this report that's a bit unique in terms of the way the maintenance structure is going to be carried out in the future?
As far as unique things, I mean, injuring liability assessment is an available tool under the Drainage Act, but it is rare to use it. But it is there because we know there's issues with Bear River. We know they were given, at the time when Bear River was created, the individual landowners were given compensation knowing that it didn't provide sufficient outlet. So we've created the maintenance fund, which was also contributed to by the East Savage drain when it was constructed, the Regenbald drain, the Simpson drain, the Wilson Johnson drain, that were all contribute to Bear River, and each of them is contributed to that fund, and that fund can then be used for the work that is being proposed for the Bear River drain. That would be the other unique item.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of there's a lot going on in this area. The area that I represent was, when I was growing up, all rural, and now it's mostly suburban. So that development pressure is having a downstream impact. And I have been engaged on this file. It obviously, it was stagnant for many years, and I've been working hard to understand concerns on both sides. There is the issues that we are seeing in Bear River that are not, they're related to what we're talking about today. So there's a lot, I guess, to unpack, and a lot of impacts that are sort of coalescing here. So I see my colleague has questions. I'll cede the floor for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. Haven't had too many of these discussions in my ward, and I apologize to Councillor Kiss for putting my hand up after her. But some of this seems a little bit backwards to me. You had mentioned that this is going to be the outlet for several developments that have already been approved, correct?
Correct.
So would the discussion around the drainage for these developments been part of original consultations with the community when the developer went to consult? Like, would this have been discussed during that process?
So through you, Mr. Chair, so through the pre-consultation discussions with the developers, we tend to raise those issues of legal and sufficient outlet. And these are initiated by the landowners.
Would the public have been aware of those conversations?
Through the planning process, I'm not sure when they get notified on that. I couldn't speak to that. Okay. But there are planners here.
So I guess what I really want to ask is, what would happen if we voted against this today?
So any decision of council can be appealed to the Ontario Drainage Tribunal or the Ontario Drainage Referee. Ultimately, this development needs a legal and sufficient outlet. Obtaining that outlet is very challenging. because the city doesn't control those downstream private properties, right? And you cannot collect water under common law and discharge it onto a neighboring property. You need an outlet. And you can acquire it through expropriation, through agreements with downstream landowners, easements. Ultimately, the Drainage Act, when you get into a number of landowners, the Drainage Act is the most effective tool to do this. And we have the second most drains in Ontario for a reason. But yeah, the whole issue of legal and sufficient outlet is challenging because it's not controlled by the overall planning process for that particular envelope, right?
I'm glad I don't have too many of these in my ward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Councillor Skalsky, do you have another question? Yeah, go ahead.
I just have one more question. Can you just explain what these minimal impacts are on the Bear River and maybe clarify whether or not there's work underway to deal with this right now and expand that, sort of make it a more sufficient outlet in the future?
In general, there's somewhat routine flooding that exists on Bear River, has been since the original report was created. What we looked at was not so much an increase in the level of flow, but because developments are controlled both pre to post, what happens is so if there's flooding, the duration of a flooding event might last basically what we considered 10% longer. It's a really difficult estimate, but the two things you look at when the flows are controlled are whether the duration of a flooding event is longer and whether the duration of a peak flow erosion event are longer. And we estimated that had the potential to be increased by 10%. As an engineering firm, we are also appointed on the Bear River Municipal Drain and are preparing to do work on that drain. And there's also another process underway that is separate from the Drainage Act that's being looked at by both the city environmental groups and the South Nation Conservation Authority. They've done a lot of work here as well that we are reviewing and incorporating in our process to see if there's anything that can be contributed at this time through that process on Bear River. But
All right, thank you very much. One of the challenges, of course, with municipal drains, as Councillor Luloff alluded to, is it's a bit of a misnomer because the municipality does not own them, nor in any part of the act does it reference these drains as municipal drains. I think that's what we use colloquially when we speak of them, but under the Drainage Act, which is a provincial piece of legislation, they are drainage works, which I think sometimes leads to a lot of confusion. Ultimately, I think this has been a very challenging file to get to where we are today, but it is necessary for the construction of homes that have already been approved. The one benefit, of course, through the Drainage Act is that impacted landowners do receive a financial payment for any loss of land or loss of production of that land, which is a protection under the Act that I think many landowners are fortunate to have. I am going to recommend that we approve this report today, colleagues. Although we are operating as a city committee today, we are working with the Provincial Drainage Act, and there are mechanisms, as we heard from staff, that will permit landowners to appeal any decision of this committee and council to ensure that their rights are protected. But ultimately, this does need to move forward if we're going to meet the housing targets set by the province and by city council. And so the report reads that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council adopt the engineer's report prepared by Robinson's Consulting, Inc., entitled Engineer's Report for the McKinnon's Creek Municipal Drain, and give first and second readings to the bylaw attached as document 3 in accordance with sections 42 and 45 of the Drainage Act of Ontario. Is this item carried?
I will say, I've been, very involved in this file. The Bear Brook watershed study is underway. I know that there's been a lot of technical work carried out. Given the size and the scale of what we are contemplating. I have a personal level of discomfort, so I will register my dissent. Thank you.
Is that item carried then with Councillor Kidd's dissent? Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Item 6.1, Strategic Initiatives Department, Independent Electricity Service Operator, Long-Term 2 Procurement, Request for Municipal Support, Confirmation in the Rural Area. There is no staff presentation, but we do have 8 delegations. So I'm going to ask Angela Keller-Herzog, who is no stranger to this committee, to start us off. I apologize. We're going to wait. We're going to go back. Before I have the presentations, I'm going to ask the vice chair to read in an amending motion. We are withdrawing items 1, 2, and 3 from this item. I just want that on the floor. My understanding, and staff can confirm, is that the applicant has asked for more time to prepare their submission. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair, would you read that in, please?
Absolutely, Chair. Whereas the report was issued with the agenda on September 22nd, 2025, and whereas staff were informed by Portage Power, the proponent of 3 projects proposed within Ward 21, that the request for granting of a municipal support confirmation for proposed solar energy generation projects known as Richmond Solar 1, Richmond Solar 2, and Richmond Solar 3 are withdrawn at this time. Therefore, be it resolved that the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee approve the withdrawal of recommendations 1, 2, and 3 of the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll now go to Angela for your presentation. And following Angela will be Nikki Trudell.
Okay, thank you very much. Always nice to be here at Friendly ERAC. Next slide, please. I think that you all know the cafes network. So we'll skip that. Next slide, please. This is the overview of the presentation. I'm hoping it'll be short, but very interesting. Next slide, please. So then what is the context that we're looking at for these municipal support confirmations for these renewable energy generation facilities? I think that we all kind of know and agree that Ottawa and Eastern Ontario need clean capacity and that we want to see local resiliency in our electrical grid. We agree that renewable energy projects bring economic, environmental, and health benefits. The ISO LT2 procurement will have rounds over several years. So this is our first rodeo, but it's not going to be our last rodeo. We also know that the municipal support confirmation is an upstream support in principle, but a full municipal and provincial approval requires many more steps and involves, I would say, a fairly long and unpredictable list of approvals. And then lastly, the provincial context is interesting as well, where Minister of Energy Lecce has already flagged Ottawa as a key focus area and has cautioned that onerous approvals would risk meeting our local capacity needs. So this is all really interesting. Next slide, please. So what are the desired outcomes from these projects? So the cafes network, as you know, has been following these files in quite a lot of depth. And we think that we can get what an economist, and that's my background, would call a Pareto improvement. And that's where we're not looking at having winners and losers, but we have just winners. And we think that we can get this if these projects are handled the right way. We think that we can get reliable power and a healthier environment. We can get investment for the municipality with local jobs and supply chains. We think that nature-friendly designs are possible. We believe that agriculture can very much stay in the picture, where possibly the agricultural output of some of these solar farms could exceed the previous land use. We think that with mandatory community benefit agreements for residents with community input, again, it would be a net gain. And last and not least, for the immediate neighbors, we think that some good neighbor packages can be put in place to make sure that there is no impact in the immediate vicinity. Next slide, please. So then, given this win-win-win scenario, what exactly is the problem? And as we see it right now here in Ottawa, we have an overly complex approval process that is slowing down good projects. And I think that if you read the staff report really closely, it would make actually a good case study for students of public admin in terms of all the gradations of permitting and zoning that are mentioned. So our current approach in Ottawa is to say, oh, renewable energy generation facility not permitted in any zone, but we're going to give you a support resolution, and then you can kind of try to get amendments and changes to our regulations. So this is like a really weird kind of approach, if you think about it. If we're saying that these are good projects, then we should be trying to create an enabling environment and have regulatory clarity. And the layered requirements should not be overlapping, duplicative, and uncertain. And this uncertainty and delay, I think, add about 6 figures in soft costs and push the timelines on these projects unnecessarily. And the net effect will be that we'll be losing investment and the local benefits, which I've enumerated. Next slide, please. So in terms of the fix to this, cafes would recommend that council direct staff to review and streamline the zoning and permitting for REGFs, make REGF a permitted use citywide where technically feasible, and then attach clear enforceable conditions via site plan and associated development approvals. And that would include covering safety and technical standards, nature-friendly expectations, which our friends from Rural Woodlands will tell us more about, mandatory municipal host.
I'll just get you to wrap up, Angela.
Community benefits, yeah. And again, take care of the immediate proximity. So last slide. So we have 4 recommendations to this committee on the next slide, last slide, that you can see there. So I'll stop there. But we think that there's a lot of room for improvement and benefiting everyone.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the delegates? Seeing none, thank you very much. All right, Nikki Trudell is our next delegate, followed by Mike Plant. I believe Nikki's online. There she is. Nikki, you've got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. Thank you for my charts as well. Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members, and staff. Thank you for allowing me to speak regarding this item. My name is Nikki Trudell. I've lived in Ward 21, Rideau, for over 45 years. I have an engineering and business accounting background. I have now devoted myself to working to address the problem of climate change in my actions, my advocacy, and my choices. I'm committed to advocating for clean energy generation, energy efficiency, and nature-based solutions. Next slide, please. Council set out 4 strategic priorities for this term, including making Ottawa a green and resilient city with a diversified and prosperous economy. Last month, staff presented the Climate Change Master Plan progress update and emissions inventories. One of the key trends noted within the corporate subsection was the increase in emissions from city facilities, quote, due to a substantial rise in the electricity grid emissions factor. That means not only was more electricity used, but the timing of the electricity usage corresponded to times when high GHG emitting sources like gas peaker plants were being utilized. Next slide, please. Energy is a key ingredient, of course, for economic progress in the 21st century. Today, that energy needs to come from clean sources like solar for several reasons. Solar is relatively quick, cheap, and easy to install. The generated electricity matches the times of increased demand, particularly in the summer, when air conditioning is becoming a health imperative. Next slide, please. In 2024, Canada experienced climate change-related insured losses of $8.5 billion. Increasing insurance premiums and the uninsured losses will continue to contribute to affordability issues, and we're in a crisis. Next slide, please. According to inflect.com, there are currently 15 data centers in Ottawa-Gatineau. Increased electricity demand from a small data center could consume 1 to 5 gigawatts of power. The Canada North Tech Park has hundreds of companies and is one of the top employers in Ottawa. This special economic district contributes about $13 billion annually to GDP. Next slide, please. Solar power is the cheapest source of electricity generation. To quote Bill McKibben, author and founder of 350.org and Third Act, the cheapest way to make power is to point a sheet of glass at the sun, end of quote. It's more than glass. 95% of today's panels include silicon, copper, bismuth, that's the stuff found in Pepto-Bismol, and aluminum. These elements must be precisely assembled, of course, under strict conditions. To achieve a flawless, uniform panel cheaply, automation is highly utilized. The panels are durable and have a lifespan of several decades. The Solar Energy Industries Association, SEIA, is creating a waste management strategy to help make the industry landfill free. Next slide, please. A new energy vision is possible in our rural communities. A new source of economic benefit for rural communities is exciting. A vision that allows solar to exist harmoniously in the rural landscape. A vision that improves land use through agrivoltaics, mixing solar, agriculture, and environmental stewardship to move from monoculture to healthier landscapes. Next slide, please. I hope this committee chooses to act in accordance with the city's energy evolution plan in allowing solar energy projects to drive affordability, resiliency, and abundance. Next slide, please. A bright future is possible. It really is. Thank you for your time and work.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Are there any questions for the delegate? Seeing none, well, thank you again for delegating today. Our next delegate is Mike, followed by Alicia. Mike, you can go ahead there. We'll get your presentation put up on the screen for you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you for having me and having this opportunity to speak. I'm not against solar. I'm not against windmills. I do believe that we are in a crisis. However, I am a landowner resident that's going to be directly impacted on the proposed Dunrobin solar project. It came as quite a surprise. As you'll see in the slides, I'm not against the entire project. I'm just a little upset about the location, 20 meters off my backyard of a pristine view, which will be decimated by the amount of solar panels. I'll have an 180-degree view as far as I can see of solar panels from my house. I moved to the Ottawa area after retiring from the GTA. I picked the spot on Dunrobin Road because of its location. It fit all my criteria where I could live a stress-free retirement and unobstructed views of farmland, forest, and the Gatineau Hills. There's basically nothing in between me and the view. So I designed my house, I guess the slideshow isn't coming up, to have anywhere in my house except for the front two bedrooms, that I could see that view from anywhere I was in the house. I did my due diligence when I moved here and before I built the house. I checked with the city planning, and I was assured that there was nothing in the city plan for 30-some years. I was concerned because there was a long driveway that was just a little south of my house that I thought went back to a gravel pit. And I didn't want gravel trucks or anything like that traveling up and down, creating noise and confusion. So I checked with the city, I did my due diligence, and they said that there was nothing planned. It was rural agricultural land. It was being farmed. There was no plans for 30 years. This is my view. So I proceeded to build the house. So I've been there for just over 10 years now, enjoying the peace, the quiet. The sun rises every morning over the Gatineaus, the sunsets that hit the Gatineaus. The wildlife is incredible in this area. There's a very large herd of deer, turkeys, foxes, you name it, bears, moose. They have it all in this area. Again, I've been assured that this is going to be, if this goes forward, they will build or plant trees to combat the view of the glare of the solar panels, because I will be facing, when the sun's out, I will be facing a glare because that whole area is going to be solar panels. And I'm sure that people will say, well, this is just not in my backyard. But that, even though I don't own that or don't own the view, that is my backyard. So, and it goes all the way to the golf course, all the way across unrestricted view. This land is basically owned by 3 entities, and only one of them actually lives in the area. And that is my neighbor. And they've agreed to lease the back 25 acres of their property because it'll be income for them for generations. Because a 30-year land lease is what I understand. You may know more than I do about that. My dream is no longer at the end of that rainbow. Now, you talk about green energy. There's a cash crop there every year since I've moved in. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen a wheat field that's green. Well, that's green energy. It's beautiful. You can actually see the wind as it goes across the and causes waves in the wheat. I understand that people have to make a living, but that the fellow that owns that property, the conglomerate, they don't live in the area. They're a professional farmer, and it's easier for them. The other land is the old Diefenbunker land, which I think is privately owned by a consortium. Again, I'm not sure, but they don't live in the area either. So other than 25 acres of this project is actually owned by anyone that has a stake in the Dunrobin area for the residents. The other thing I have is the mere size of this project. It's over 400 acres. That would cause huge transmission lines that are going to have to go 5 kilometers somewhere, and we haven't been assured of where those are going to go yet. So I don't know who would want a massive solar farm 20 meters back of where the grass is into the field there. And again, the trees would have to be 30-foot trees because the land at the back rises up. And
I'll just get you to wrap up, Mike.
Thank you. I think I've made my point, and like I said, I've got the city of Ottawa seems in their projects with Portage seems to be taking a lot of this into account, and this other has not.
Don't run away. There might be questions for you. Are there any questions for the delegate? Vice Chair.
Just want to thank you for coming out today, Mike, and I know that your presentation wasn't put up until about halfway through what you had to say, so I wanted to just ask you if there was anything in that presentation that you wanted us to see that we didn't get to see.
No, it's just the location, how it'll affect my state of mind and my health. I've been losing sleep because I just found out about this 1st of August, but it's been going on for over a year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next delegate is Alicia, followed by Lindsay, and then Terry.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Alessia Mole. I'm an engagement manager with Environmental Defense. I just moved to Ottawa exactly a year ago today. So I just wanted to share what I've learned working in environmental defense, as well as why I think this project is a good idea. I will start by saying that we do support the recommendation to council to provide a municipal support confirmation for the Dunrobin, Richmond, and CARP projects. My role as an engagement manager is to encourage members of the public to contact elected officials about environmental issues that they care about. We had about 430 of our supporters in the Ottawa region send letters to City Council expressing their support for the solar projects. Just about 100 of them are from rural constituents. We believe this is a very significant moment for Ottawa to become a leader in renewable energy. The 4 major projects proposed in Ottawa, including the Canada project, would add a massive amount of capacity to the grid. With more solar, Ottawa can meet growing electricity needs affordably, cleanly, and reliably. Solar is now one of the cheapest forms of energy and does not emit harmful pollutants and only takes a few years to build. Hosting renewable energy projects offers many economic benefits to the region. So a community benefit agreement would ensure that communities hosting the projects would receive the most benefits. Some examples of MSCs passed under LT2, a recent one in Prince Edward County for a project that was only about 40 megawatts of solar. The proponent agreed to an annual payment of $1,000 per megawatt to the municipality. Also recently in Sault Ste. Marie, there are multiple community benefits proposed with wind and solar projects that received their MSCs. They expect property tax of $500,000 per year once operating. And for the wind projects, there will be host payments to the city, as well as a proposed $500,000 of a community fund presented to council in principle, according to, that would go towards local priorities, scholarships, school meal programs, recreation trails, things like that. There are other examples of these CBAs under LT2 that also include wind and battery. And Ottawa City Council through staff, I expect, could negotiate similar benefits, such as funds for neighborhood foundations, community projects, or even housing retrofits. The LT2 procurement initially announced by a former Minister of Energy, Todd Smith, was solely for renewables. When Minister Lecce came in 2024, they opened LT2 procurement to fossil gas. So if the ISO doesn't meet energy demands through renewable energy under LT2, it risks imposing more gas plants onto communities. We've already seen MSCs offered in Lambton County and Thunder Bay for gas plants. And we expect more to come either before the December deadline or into the next round next year. And gas plants bring local health risks, worsen climate disasters, and increase our dependence on gas imported from the US. So we should try to do anything we can to avoid new gas and opt for cleaner and safer solutions for our energy needs. We encourage council to move forward in a way that your municipality is able to negotiate the best deal for Ottawa, the residents, and especially the residents in the host areas. These solar projects are a good opportunity for Ottawa to contribute to the transition to renewable energy and can further further Ontario in meeting its capacity needs by avoiding new gas plants, and awarding renewable projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With 50 seconds to spare, are there any questions for the delegate? Not seeing any. So thank you very much for coming out today. Lindsay is our next delegate, followed by Terry.
Hello all. Hope you can hear me okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for allowing me here today. I would like to share a little bit of what is already happening within Ottawa city limits. Back to the white and green one, please. Yeah, that one, that's me. Thank you. So my name is Lindsay Smith. I'm in Ward 5. So Councillor Kelly, lovely to see you again. This is happening in Ward 5, solar grazing on a 200-acre utility scale solar site located on Goleta Side Road. This is an older installation. This went in 2008, 2009. We have been grazing this site for 8 full years. We just moved the sheep out of the site. My point today really is just to share what is possible and what I think should be a key component of any of these projects going forward, which is that mention of agrivoltaics, which is the combination of growing either food through meat, vegetables, crops, with power generation on the same acre, no longer making it about an either or, but making it an and. Next slide, please. So we are Shady Creek Lamb Co. Our home farm is on Carp Road. This particular site on Goleta Side Road is about 10 kilometers from our home farm. We run about 500 ewes on this site, plus their lambs. And we also, as I'll mention in a bit, also have expanded our custom grazing to also include cover cropping, which within city limits, I think is a fantastic way to, as you discussed earlier in this meeting, potentially increase water absorption rates of the farmland and increase infiltration rates as well, but we can talk about that another time. Next slide, please. This is who we are, Lindsay Smith and Chris Moore. So for these sites and for these proposed sites, and I really want to encourage council to potentially make this a key part of the permitting process, if that's even possible. But on the same acre, we can not just provide that power that these panels generate. We also do create fiber. We create nutrient-dense food in the case of lamb. We also support honeybees on these same sites, but perhaps more importantly in my mind is we support native pollinators, we support incredible biodiversity. And so realistically, while I understand there is this idea that these acres become fields of glass, the sites are quite alive under those panels. We have an older site that the panels don't track. On the new sites with new technology, the panels actually track, and that means that there's an abundance of plants and of course arthropods, insects, birds that live underneath these panels and coexist. Next slide, please. Maybe. There we go. Okay. I do want to point out that for anything to be sustainable, whether that's renewable energy, whether that's agriculture, the community has to win, the people component has to benefit, the environment has to benefit, but there needs to be an economic benefit as well. For us, we are paid to graze. So this is not free grass. We provide a service of vegetation abatement. This has become another income stream for our farm. It has also meant we've been able to expand our flock size without expanding our own land base. So we've been able to very economically grow our farm and grow our farm business with this other income stream. Next slide, please. Which of course has community benefits as well. One of the other things we have been doing now 4 years in is we are working with 2 grain farmers who have no interest in owning livestock, but they really want to grow cover crops, so this is either oats, peas, a mix of those things that goes in after winter wheat that keeps that ground covered. It reduces erosion. It helps to keep nutrients where we want them, but it does pose a bit of a problem in that all that growing biomass, you got to do something with it before you grow the next crop. So we have been partnering with 2 different farmers on several different fields to actually take our sheep off the solar site at the end of the season and bring them to cover crop graze. Next slide, please. I do want to just mention quickly, I think it's a really key component, I know I'm running out of time, that our rural communities, while we are part of the city, we really do become hosts to a lot of these projects where the inner city, the urban areas really benefit. I really do think it's important that there be benefits for the rural communities that maybe are more than just, community centers or walking paths. We really do need to see a trade-off. As you heard from earlier people, the people in the rural areas are going to have to significantly adjust, what it might look like in their neighborhood. And I think it's really important that there be community benefits. Next slide, please. 4 seconds, please, if there are any questions. Yeah, next slide, last slide. It's just a thank you, yes, and a pun. That is my email address. Happy to answer questions offline as well if anyone wants to know more of what we're doing or how this may work in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Are there any questions for the delegate? Not seeing any, so I'll thank you for coming and hope to see you back soon. How's a play on words? Everyone can laugh. Yeah. Thank you very much, Lindsay. Terry, you're next and you're already at the table, and we'll have Margaret after that.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and present Rural Woodlands' position on advancing nature-friendly solar farms in Ottawa. Next slide, and next slide, please. 2 more. That's just what we are. Solar farms are powerful tools in the fight against climate change, but their development must be approached with ecological sensitivity to avoid exacerbating another global crisis, the crisis of biodiversity loss. By integrating nature-friendly habitats into solar installations, we can simultaneously address climate and ecological challenges, enhance agricultural productivity, and improve long-term project viability. We are facing a dual crisis, the crisis of climate change and of biodiversity loss. And so, while solar farms do offer a clean energy solution to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, this land use transformation risks displacing wildlife and degrading ecosystems if it is not carefully managed. Habitat loss, especially in agricultural landscapes, is a leading driver of global insect die-off. This threatens pollination services, food security, and ecosystem health. With solar farms, we have the opportunity to address all of these challenges all at the same time. Solar farms, next slide, please. Solar farms must be designed not only to capture sunlight, but also to preserve and restore ecological function. As a strategic solution, we recommend that pollinator-friendly solar farms incorporate native grasses, native wildflowers, and non-invasive cover crops beneath and around photovoltaic arrays. Next slide, please. This approach brings a multitude of benefits. Firstly, biodiversity and pollinator support. Insects play critical roles in nutrient cycling, pollination, seed dispersal, and pest control. Nearly 90% of flowering plants and 75% of global crops rely on insect pollination. Studies show that insect abundance tripled over 5 years at Minnesota solar sites with native plantings. These habitats support endangered and declining insect species like bumblebees and monarch butterflies, and they provide nesting opportunities and food for birds. Secondly, soil and water quality benefits. Deep-rooted native plants improve stormwater infiltration and reduce erosion by up to 77%, and they retain more water during droughts. Compared to turf grass, pollinator-friendly sites retain 10% more water and significantly enhance soil health. Thirdly, the benefit of carbon sequestration. Native grassland vegetation stores 35% more carbon than turf grass, and 65% more carbon than conventional crops. This adds to the climate mitigation benefits of solar energy generation. And fourthly, operational and economic advantages. Less mowing and less weed control mean lower long-term maintenance cost and a lower risk of damage from mowing machinery. And deep-rooted native plants also stabilize the soil, so they therefore reduce the risk of damage to solar arrays from frost heave. And the cooler microclimates generated by native plantings actually improve the efficiency and longevity of solar panels, and enhanced aesthetics and community support lead to faster permitting and reduced mitigation costs. Next slide, please. To maximize all of these benefits, these are our policy recommendations and best practices for solar developers. Solar developers should integrate habitat-friendly design into early planting stages, engage specialists in native plant ecology and local environmental conditions, avoid turfgrass monocultures and prioritize regionally appropriate vegetation, and collaborate with stakeholders, landowners, biologists, and communities to ensure ecological and social buy-in. Next slide, please. Pollinator-friendly farms offer a path forward that harmonizes clean energy production with ecological stewardship. By embracing this dual-use strategy, we can combat climate change, restore biodiversity, and build resilient agricultural systems. The future of solar energy must not just be sustainable, it must also be regenerative. Next slide. Rural Woodlands Ottawa proposes that the City of Ottawa make nature-friendly solar farms part of the approval process for all proposed solar farms.
Your time has elapsed, but if you want to wrap up. Oh,
That's
your
it.
comment. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. Any questions for the delegate? Seeing none. Well, thank you very much. It's nice to see, it's always nice to see Pam and Andrea, but it's also nice to see someone else from the group as well come out.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you. Margaret, you're next. And then following Margaret, I have Andrew, Josh, David, and Robert, all as one delegate. All right, Margaret, that's you now. Go ahead.
Hi there. There's actually two of us. Afshana Danji. Would you mind adding her as a participant? She was going to speak to the slides and we're both going to answer questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, not a problem. We're promoting her now. And I'll just get the timer to restart when Shannon gets on there. All right, the floor is yours. We can hear you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Afshana Danji and I'm a Senior Development Manager at Westbridge Renewable Energy Corp. Here in the room with me, I have our Chief Operating Officer, Margaret McKenna, and today we're just going to provide you with a quick overview of the Dunrobin Solar Project. Okay, next slide, please. The Dunrobin Solar Project is being developed by Dunrobin Solar Inc., which is a subsidiary of Westbridge Renewable Energy Corp. Westbridge is a Canadian renewable energy company based out of Calgary, Alberta, and we focus on the early stages of development for utility-scale solar and energy storage projects. Okay, next slide. The Dunrobin Solar Project is a ground-mounted solar project in the Dunrobin Woodlawn area. The project is in the early stages of development, and we are now seeking a municipal support confirmation from the city so that we can submit the project through the first window of the ISO's LT2 RFP. Okay, next slide. We selected the Dunrobin Solar Project site based on 4 key factors: proximity to existing transmission infrastructure with capacity, the land characteristics of the site, current land use and zoning, and solar irradiance. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the project is a ground-mounted solar PV project with a generation capacity of approximately 86 megawatts. It's situated on approximately 300 acres of private land, all of which is zoned as rural countryside. The project will connect to an existing 230 kilovolt transmission line approximately 5 kilometers southeast of the project. Okay, next slide. So here we have a high-level site overview. The shaded area designated as preliminary buildable area outlines the footprint that we are exploring for the panels. We have reduced this footprint since our first public notice, and we shared this most recent version at our community open house last week. Okay, next slide. Since our first open house, we've made a few changes, not just to the layout, but also with the overall plan for the project. We've engaged a local chief grazer to explore how we can incorporate agriculture into the project. We've had discussions with adjacent landowners to see how we can provide them with direct benefits. We are also working with city councilors to confirm that the proceeds of the host municipality agreement will directly benefit the local community. And as I previously mentioned, we have reduced the project size and footprint based on new information that we received from the city and through discussions with the adjacent landowners. Okay, next slide. If the project is awarded an ISO contract, we will be completing comprehensive environmental and technical studies in accordance with Ontario's renewable energy approval process. On the right side of the slide here, we have the typical studies and reports that would be required as part of the REA application. In the interest of time, I won't list them all, but this slide deck is available on the project website for anyone who's interested. But I think the key takeaway here is that we are in the very early stages of development, and if the project is awarded a contract, it would be subject to very rigorous permitting and approval, a very rigorous and permitting and approval process. Next slide. Okay, so we can actually just skip a couple more slides to summary of engagement, just in the interest of time. Perfect. So yeah, lastly, just wanted to quickly provide a summary of the engagement activities that we've undertaken over the last few months. On July 28th, we sent out our first public notification and invitation to our virtual open house, which we hosted on August 13th. We had over 50 stakeholders attend the virtual session. Unfortunately, there were still a handful of stakeholders who were unable to access the link. Based on the feedback provided by members of the community, we decided to host a second open house, which we held in person last Wednesday at the West Carleton Community Complex. Since our first open house, we've had several phone calls and in-person meetings with members of the community, agencies, the City of Ottawa, and we remain open to continued stakeholder consultation throughout the project. Next slide. Okay, so that concludes our presentation, and we are open to taking any questions.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you guys for being here today. One of the main concerns from my residents when this first was brought to their attention was the scale at 150 megawatts and approximately 400 acres. You did, in your presentation, indicate that it's gone from 150 to 86 megawatts. Can you describe to the committee what has changed and what has led to the reduction in size? And can you do your best to indicate the number of acres in a reduction that goes along with the reduction in megawatts?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so after additional discussions with the city and specifically feedback from environmental staff, they indicated that there were areas along the north border of the layout that from their initial look appeared to be wetlands. So we pulled the northern boundary farther south in accordance with the shape files that we received from the city. We, as Shauna mentioned, we've had a lot of discussions with the residents who live along Dunrobin Road, whose backyards will, could have a view of the project. With that in mind and hearing that feedback, we did reduce the footprint such that we brought the southern border farther north so that there's more distance in between those residences and the project, which should serve to significantly mitigate visual impacts for those residents.
Could you give me an estimate of acres?
Yeah, so the total property that we have is actually 600 acres. Due to the floodplain in Constance Creek, we initially showed only 400 that we were planning to use for the project. Due to the two changes that I just mentioned, that's now been reduced to 300 acres. So about 50% of the total property area will be used for the project.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. And another discussion that we've had together and at public meetings is around the viability of this land to be farmed again someday. And over 15 years ago, we've heard discussions today about the Goleta, sometimes referred to as the Armprior Solar Project at the corner of Goleta Side Road and Highway 17, and that is on land that is zoned AG and was very productive farmland. And we don't want to see loss of very good farmland anymore. And in fact, I don't really want to see the loss of any land that is being farmed. But Can you confirm for me, and this answer is extremely important for me. Can you please confirm for me and the members of this committee and community that it is in fact your plan that you will not be using concrete in the ground? Certainly in the areas that are currently being farmed now.
Yes, I can confirm that. As we've discussed, and I think is pretty well known in the community, the former DND area does have existing concrete already in the ground. But the areas that are in agriculture now will not have concrete, like subsurface concrete put in the ground. I really can't speak to the Arnprior Goleta project. I don't know anything about it, but it is older. My understanding is it's much older technology and conditions that would warrant the use of subsurface concrete. Now there's different technologies and ways of anchoring the foundations to the ground in situations where there's shallow bedrock, which may well be the case here. So yes, I can confirm that there's no intention to use concrete, and that one of the good things about solar projects is that you can remove all of the infrastructure and return it to its previous land use.
And then the other really interesting part of discussion that matters a lot to me as the representative of a community that is very proud of its agricultural roots and production is, you know, some of the conversations we've heard today about additional or different agricultural uses for properties that have solar panels on them. So are you committed to working with local agricultural producers to, you know, ensure that this site is set up so that they could use the property and that a different form of agricultural could exist on this property if in fact the project does go ahead?
Yes, absolutely. We have been having discussions with Shady Farms already to explore the possibility of grazing sheep, which is, you know, as Lindsay mentioned, is not only another line of income for a local farmer, but helps us with maintenance. This is what, you know, what we're calling agrivoltaics has become a very popular all over in solar projects, frankly, all over the world, just in terms of similar concerns around loss of agricultural land. Excuse me. I believe we also had conversations with our apiary, the bee people. Sorry, I apologize for not using the proper scientific term. You know, to have bees and other species that would help to promote biodiversity.
Thank you very much. Last question. Just in regards to the consultation process and ongoing communications and conversations with residents, particularly the ones who back right on to the property where you're proposing to put this operation. Again, hypothetically, if the project was to be supported and you were to get a contract through the ISO, will you commit today to continuing to have those conversations with those residents to try your very best to address their concerns after the ISO hypothetically gave you a contract? I want some commitment that those communications will be continuing in good faith to minimize impact on anyone who lives close to the site.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we stand by our principle that we're always available. Anyone can email, can call. We've personally visited with several of the residents at their homes. We intend to continue that, to listen to concerns and determine ways to address them. We've had discussions with Mr. Plant, who spoke earlier. We're trying to confirm a meeting for next week, I believe. So yes, one of the things we pride ourselves is on really listening to the community, trying to find ways to make projects less impactful on their lives, and, make it a win for everybody. We're not, I think I said before, we acknowledge we're not going to win over all the hearts and minds, but we can try to make it more acceptable in finding ways to bring benefits to those residents.
I think the 5 people sitting at this table would agree that it's impossible to win all the hearts and minds all the time. I appreciate your time today, and thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Any other questions for the delegate? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming out today.
Thank you.
So lastly, we have Andrew, Josh, David, and Robert who are here to answer questions should we have them. Are there any questions for? Yeah. I'm not seeing any questions. I see Andrew on the screen, Josh on the screen. Gentlemen, I'm not seeing any questions for you, so thank you very much for coming, unless there's a comment you'd like to leave us with.
No, but thank you very much for taking the time to look at this.
Thank you very much. All right, before we go to questions for staff, the Vice Chair has a motion that I'm going to ask him to read in now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Whereas the City of Ottawa has previously entered into host municipality responsibility agreements with third-party project proponents who provide funds related to community initiatives in recognition of the project's efforts on local or project's effects on local community. And whereas the host municipality agreements generally provide for the city to determine how to allocate and disperse funds provided by the third party in order to respond to community needs and ensure accountability and transparency where eligible community initiatives often identified by city staff in consultation with the relevant ward councillor. Therefore, be it resolved that staff, in the event these projects proceed, be directed to request that the proposed Dunrobin Solar Project and the Carp Airport Solar Project proponents be encouraged to enter into a host municipality agreement with the City of Ottawa, consistent with other host municipality responsibility agreements previously entered into by the city, through which the proponent would provide an amount of at least $1,000 per megawatt per year, with the goal to achieve a higher amount if possible, for a period of not less than 20 years. The finalization and execution of such an agreement shall be approved by council, with recommendations to be provided as to the allocation and disbursements of such funds. Be it further resolved that staff be directed to provide the City Council with an update on the status and the requests to the proponents by way of memorandum within 3 months following the issuance of a contract by the independent electricity system operator for the Dunrobin Solar Project and Carp Airport Solar Project, and to bring forward for committee and council approval of any draft host municipality agreements negotiated with the proponents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Now we'll go to questions to city staff. Councillor Scalzi, go ahead.
Sorry, I have several questions. So the resident that spoke talked about wildlife that walk through the back property there. So when solar panels get installed like this, and I think this is a question to you, but is there a requirement by the city to fence it off, or are wildlife still able to go through? Like, is that a corridor that they can continue to use?
So through you, Mr. Chair, so that would certainly be something that we consider as part of the site plan process, but we have indications from this proposal to date that the intent is to allow that continued grazing and minimizing impact to local wildlife.
Great, thank you. And just in terms of the LT2 process, does it allow the municipality to add conditions such as, a requirement to have share the space for certain types of agriculture, or that you must also include a buffer visual screen for residents, or is there conditions allowed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so that would be something that we can, if the proponents are successful through the, in receiving a contract from the ISO, that we can contemplate as part of the site plan process.
Okay, that's all for me, thank you.
I believe Councillor Kitts has some questions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the same vein, I was just wondering if you had any comments on the motion.
No comments on the motion, Councillor.
Staff supportive of.
Staff support.
Okay, yes, great. Yeah, I think, I do think that there is some things that need to be highlighted here. LT2, very different than LT1, with the requirement to pre-engage with the city and check all the public engagement requirements. And I think, we're seeing that sort of positive change be reflected. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Not seeing any more questions for staff. So thank you very much for your time. And I guess if no one else has anything to say, I obviously have some words about the two applications of my ward. In terms of the Carp Airport solar project, that was a fairly easy decision. It's small in nature. It's on land that is going to be developed someday when this area gets city water, and it's being proposed by people who are living in the community right next door. So that one was easy. The rest of my time will be dedicated to talking about the Dunrobin Solar Project. And this was one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in this job. And this decision is not something it's something I've been considering in depth on a daily basis since I became aware of the application. And I will admit, my very first reaction to this application was not positive. I was turned off by the scale of the project and the fact that it was being proposed on land that's currently being farmed. One of the main reasons I put my name on the ballot in 2022 was to keep our community rural, and to achieve that, I plan to work as hard as I can to preserve our farms. Had you asked me for my support on this 2 months ago, I would have said no way. These issues, along with the quality of public consultation and local benefit, were my main considerations. This will come as no surprise to those who have been paying attention to these files over the last 3 years. Many in our community were upset years ago when prime agricultural land was used for a large-scale solar farm at the corner of Valletta Side Road and Highway 17. I can assure members of the community that if that was the case in this scenario, I would not be supportive of this application. But in this case, the land on which this application is being proposed is not zoned agricultural, and it does fall outside of the designated agricultural resource area. I will also add a very important point, that I will continue to evaluate each of these applications on their own merit and the proposed plan. There is a lot of land currently being farmed that is not zoned AG, and my support of this application is not an indication that I will do so again in the future. I believe there is very quality land being farmed that should be protected, and I think there's a serious conversation that we need to have both as a city and with the province about that. However, in this case, the applicant has assured the city on public record just today that they will not be using concrete to secure the panels into the ground. At the end of the life of this project, returning the land to production will be an option. I have also learned about the agricultural work being done on other sites where solar panels are installed in Ward 5 and beyond. There is cover cropping and grazing that can happen. Farmers are being paid to crop and graze their animals, and landowners are still earning money on that same land. A change like this actually increases the opportunities for more agricultural operators to benefit financially. It is also conceivable that as a result of this, biodiversity on the site actually increases. I also consulted with the leadership of our local chapter of the Ontario Farmers Association, who did not have an issue with this application. It is in line with the OFA's provincial guidelines that these projects not be permitted on prime agricultural land. So on the agricultural side of things, I could find no real rationale to oppose this project. One of the other key considerations I make in all situations is the quality of public consultation. I think there was a bit of a rough start, as was acknowledged by the applicant with their first public meeting and some people not being able to log on, including myself. But I will commend the applicant on their response. They quickly agreed to a second in-person session, started working directly with landowners, and started, I believe, genuinely looking for ways to provide direct benefits to those residents who are most affected by this project. I know there are some challenges to doing that, but the effort is there. Westbridge even reduced the size and footprint of the project based on feedback from the city and the public. These are things I have been asking for 2 years. And quite frankly, I think it would be disingenuous for me to not support the applicants who are doing what we have been asking them to do for several years. So we've had decent public consultation, although it's not perfect. That will continue. Feedback has been incorporated into their new plan. There's been a reduction in the size and footprint. and I believe a very minimal net impact on agricultural activity. Now, to Mike and Wanda, I do feel for the residents who will back onto this, and I think that most residents would be able to identify with the feelings you are having about the unknowns of exactly how this will affect you. If I owned one of those properties, would I want this happening behind me? No, I would not. But I think you can take some comfort in the size reduction and this applicant's willingness to work with you and I and the city on ways to minimize the impact that you might experience. You will still have beautiful view of the Gatineaus. You will have my support and attention as this application moves its way forward, and my commitment that I will continue to be by your side during those conversations. The other thing that I may ask those residents to consider is that this large landmass behind your property is zoned rural countryside and has been for many years, I believe since before amalgamation. And this zoning allows for many, many things. The document that I'm supposed to reference is way over there, but this zoning generally would permit other things such as group homes, retirement homes. There are a decent list of things that could potentially be put there. An animal hospital, an artist studio, a bed and breakfast, a cemetery, environmental preserve, an education area, which I'm sure would be your preference, home-based business, a kennel, on-farm diversified use, which can bring many, many different things, additional dwellings, just to name a few. Another thing to consider is that the IESO procurements are going to keep coming. The province has identified a need for more energy, and whether we like it or not, the companies who provide that power will continue to respond to the RFP process. The transmission lines in our area have capacity, whereas the transmission lines in Orleans, South Navan don't have the same capacity. So if you are against these projects, I think it's necessary to understand that the province is not going to let up. They are going to continue to procure more sources of energy and storage of energy, and that maybe there are times when we need to contemplate what may be proposed here someday if we oppose this, are wind turbines and battery energy storage systems, both of which I believe would have a far greater impact than this installation. This is not new technology. There are no documented issues in Ward 5 because of solar installations already in place. They do not combust, they do not contaminate or take from our groundwater, and this particular project will not have a net negative impact on agriculture in our ward. For those reasons, I have decided to support the staff recommendation to provide an MSR for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair, to the applicant and to staff and all of our delegates who have come out today. So first, I'm going to ask members of committee to vote on the technical amendment that was put forward by the Vice Chair to withdraw the original recommendations 1, 2, and 3, which were the 3 applications coming forward in Ward 21, as the applicant has requested more time for their submission. So is the technical amendment carried? Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask members of committee to vote on the host municipality responsibility agreement that the Vice Chair read in a few minutes ago. Is that item carried? Carried. All right. Thank you very much. Now, colleagues, originally when these procurement applications and MSR requests were coming forward, one thing that committee did ask for is that each project would be considered individually by this committee. And so I'm going to read out the report recommendations, but I'm going to ask a vote for each of the 2 items individually. So the report is that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend that Council grant a municipal support confirmation for the purposes of satisfying the mandatory requirements under section 4.2C of the LT2E1 RFP, which does not supersede any applicable permits or approvals under applicable laws and regulations that may be required for a long-term energy project 2. And then item 1, a proposed solar energy generation project known as the Dunrobin Solar Project and located at 3492, 3540, and 3582 Dunrobin Road, as well as two adjacent unaddressed properties known as parcels numbers 0456400001 and 45660156 in Ward 5, West Carlton March, as shown in document 7 and as summarized in document 8. Is number 1 item carried as amended? Thank you. And 2, a proposed solar energy generation project known as Carp Airport Solar Project and located at 1500 Thomas Argue Road in Ward 5, West Carlton March, as shown in document 9 and as summarized in document 10. Is that item carried as amended? Thank you very much. Thank you very much to staff who have come out today. The next item is 8 in-camera items, and there are no in-camera items. We have no one registered for the open mic session, so our next meeting of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee will be on November 6th. So thank you very much for coming out today, Ray. Meeting adjourned.